Welcome back. Session 2 of day 5. We are nearing the end of the program. For the 5 day, we are together. For the last 5 days, we are together. And after lunch, there will be one more session, then the evaluation. And after the evaluation, we would have a very brief valediction session. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, I talked to him today, and he will be present, I think. Okay, so let me have the pleasure of presenting our next speaker, Mr. Parno Ghosh. Sorry, it should be Parna, Mr. Parno Ghosh. Currently, Mr. Parno Ghosh is working as Group CIO for Unominda Group. His total experience spans across 29 years plus in reputed MNCs and Indian organizations in leadership capacities. He is 6 times winner of the coveted CIO 100 award and more than 50 prestigious awards in India for the last decade. Prior to Unominda, he was associated in leadership positions with CNH Industrial, Honda Motorcycle and Scooters India, Tata Group, TACO, and Precol and his background spans across manufacturing to service, distribution, and retail industry. So we have amongst us and a representative from industry with such a large experience. He's distinguished speaker in various IT forums. What happened? Various IT forums on subjects ranging from technology, innovation, digital disruption, and business transformation through IT. As he is associated with Uttarakhand Technical University as a guest lecturer for the FDPs. And here now he is associated with us, the University of Bardhaman. He represents various national forums in the capacity of driving IT in overall industry, specifically automotive. He is a member of National Digital Committee and chairman for North Zone Digital Committee of ACMA, member governing council of CII, Center for Digital Transformation, member of Knowledge and Innovation Council, CIOs of India. He holds a postgraduate degree in information technology from Karnataka University with bachelor's from University of Calcutta. He holds several certifications, performance and leadership from Harvard Business School, strategic thinking certification from ISB, innovative CIO certification from IIM Bangalore, and certification on financial management from IIT Delhi. His talk title today would be Use of Sensors and IoT Technology in Automotive in this Digital Era. With this, I have the pleasure and honor of introducing Mr. Ghosh before our audience and on behalf of the organizers and also the participants here. We convey our sincere thanks and gratitude to Mr. Ghosh for his time and effort. Mr. Ghosh, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Very good. So you have to give me the start sharing option. Allow that option for me. Yeah, thank you. So first of all, thank you, Anindoda, as I call you Anindoda. And Anindoda is our, my ex-school mate, and he's one batch senior to me in Ramakrishna Mission, Narendrapur. And rather, we met after, I believe, I don't know, 35 years or so, digitally during this pandemic. So first of all, congratulations to all the participants who are part of this faculty development program of University of Bardhaman. This is a very good opportunity for faculties who are actually professionals in their own domains, or I will say the right academicians of our country, to come across all sorts of exposure in terms of technology, leadership, then the industry exposure. Obviously, I don't think you need any background or any kind of knowledge on the academic side, because you're all experts in your own subject. But I think this exposure will definitely help you in bringing up the right students and the right I will say the right people or pupil for our country, and which are our future. I mean, that's extremely important. Many times I go to many universities, especially I'm associated with IIT Delhi and also Uttarakhand Technical University. I'm a visiting faculty for them. So I see that there is a big gap between the academia and the industry, and most of the people are not employable at all in terms of the right perspectives, or the right knowledge which is required for the industry. Since I am working in this industry for almost 30 years now, so I have seen that this gap actually builds a lot of stress and mental pressure and agony for the students who joins the organizations or the industries after completing their graduation or masters. So I think that thing I have requested the other universities also how to bridge the gap through a lot of programs which can be conducted in the industry itself for the students and also for the faculties, because faculties are extremely important who actually teach the students how to grow in their career, how to grow in their future, how to grow in academia as well as in industry both. So I think this programs really helps, and thanks to Dr. Bose for organizing this. There was some change in the schedule because of the pandemic situation, and as you all know, I mean, we are still going through a big risk in the entire country. Also in the entire world, I will see the Europe is again going for 4 weeks of lockdown, and India is expected to continue as it is, because now Diwali is coming up. But I believe stress and the tension is always going to be there with us, how to go ahead. So but thanks for organizing. My topic is use of sensors in IoT technology. I have been given around 40-45 minutes time. Post that we should have some question and answers. If you have, definitely I'll try to
No,
answer. Plus please.
you can take up to, up to 1 hour if you need. No problem.
Okay, fine. Then it's absolutely fine. And let me also give a disclaimer in the beginning before I start that I am not an expert in sensor technology, although Anindoda told me that you must present your industry perspective on that. But what I have understood when I was studying this subject, obviously in the internet and other domains, and we are as a business also, we have a lot of sensors we produce and we sell in the market. It's a huge subject, starting from its technological start to the advancement, to business, to application, to utilization, future. I mean, it's a completely different genre altogether. So please bear with me. I am not an expert on sensors. At the same time, I am not an expert in everything. Also in IT, still I'm in a learning phase after 30 years. So the point of contention here is, ask me questions. I will try to answer those which I have a right perspective immediately. If I don't have, I'll come back to you over mail or something like that, or through Anindoda, you can request us. I'll definitely try to answer those over a period of time. So let me start my presentation. So the subject is, use of sensors and IoT technology in automotive and digital era. As you know, sorry, let me just grasp a bit sip of tea. Yeah, good. So before I start on the sensors and IoT technology, let's understand how the industrial movement has happened. You all know about industrial movement. It started. It was not a predefined industry 1.0, but it started around 74 with mechanization, steam power, weaving looms. Weaving looms are nothing but the looms which we used to have back in India as well. After almost 100 years, we had Industry 2.0, which was talking about mass production, assembly line, electrical energy, which was around 1870. That means last to last century, end of last to last century, around 1870, again started in Europe. So 1.0 and 2.0 both started in Europe. And then 3.0, which was especially in terms of automation, computers, and electronics, which started around 1970s. and again started in Europe, and then penetrated in Americas, and then Asia adopted it much later, in terms of adoption. So these three generation of industrial revolutions happened over a period of time, followed by Industry 4.0, which started in last decade. From around 2010 it started, and again this term is given by the German the automobile manufacturers, and they started using this term called Industry 4.0, which is nothing but cyber physical systems, Internet of Things and networks. I am very interested, and I'm keen to just showcase these figures of the years. So 1784, after almost 100 years, Industry 2.0, again after 100 years, Industry 3.0, now in 40 years, Industry 4.0. But from now on, whatever industry changes you will see, or industry models you will see, or the frameworks you will see, it will happen in every 5 years. So the cycle for the change has been reduced to drastically because of the fast disruption happening in the market, which is extremely important to understand. What is beyond Industry 4.0? Industry 4.0 is beyond is Society 5.0, which is talking about IoT, convergence of IoT, artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, and 5G. So Society 5.0 actually connects the economy, connects the environment, connects the society, connects the people, connects technology, connects platform. Everything is in a connected world. So today, although we call it as a connected world, but Society 5.0 is the ideal situation where we look at connected world in a much larger spectrum. This study was done by A.T. Kearney. I believe all of you may know who is A.T. Kearney. A.T. Kearney is one of the largest consulting firms in working across the world, and they are also having an office in India. So they did a study with ACMA and SIAM. ACMA is Automotive Component Manufacturers Association, and SIAM is basically Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. That means the body who are making the cars or two wheelers, and the body who are making the auto parts, like companies like ours. So these two organizations, along with A.T. Kearney, they did a study on digital transformation, and they talked about 11 technologies which will actually disrupt the entire market, industry, and this automobile sector as a whole in the next few decades. And you will see, I have highlighted two of the technologies. Point number one, which is Internet of Things, and point number 10, which is RFID and sensors. Apart from that, there are other technologies as well, which are advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, as you know, AI and ML, which is penetrating very fast in our industry now. Advanced robotics, additive manufacturing, which is nothing but 3D printing, augmented and virtual reality, blockchain, digital payments. API is one of the most important part in terms of integration, and RPs, which are robotics process automation. But significantly, 1 and 10, which are IoT and RFIDs and public sensors, are the biggest disruptors in products, technologies, and processes. I don't want to teach what is a sensor, but just to make sure that we are at the right perspective, what kind of sensors are there in the market, and how we are utilizing the sensors will come later on. So you will have see humidity sensors, you will see temperature sensors, and I am telling these are all related with automobile as well. Accelerometer, infrared, ultrasonic, touch sensor, which is nothing but proximity sensors, and color sensors, and also smoke sensors, smoke detection sensors. Utilization are all sectors. I mean, these are all the 5 sectors we have mentioned, but if you see every sector, including your education sector, also will be having sensors in future. I don't know how it will be, say for an example, your laboratories or your lab equipments, or your say for an example, attendance. Say for an example, a person comes inside the class, and when he enters, he might have a RFID tag which will carry a sensor, and his attendance will be done. Also access control. Suppose a Calcutta University person comes into Burdwan University, and he intrudes into your classroom. The classroom should be, the smart classroom should be able to detect him, that this is not the right person, and some beep will come, as far as the sensor is concerned, and you can easily detect that this guy has to be, thrown out or something like that. So I think this is another use case. I'm just thinking about education industry, labs, attendance, access control, uh, you may find smart results in future. Now smart results may come into a chip, or come into, already we have the digital results available in the internet or something, but it may be more smarter in future. We don't know, the kind of evolution is happening. But since our use case is automotive, I'll focus mostly on the automotive and the manufacturing side. Then in our daily life, as you know, homes, we have now many sensors available, starting from your ambience to your lighting to your access control, your parking, your door sensors. Everywhere we have sensors. Smart buildings, we have motion sensors, we have light sensors. I will just run through these slides fast because these are not the topic of discussion, just to set the perspective right. And then we have sensors in the healthcare industry, which is also a very big use case in terms of uh, penetration of healthcare. Healthcare is one of the sectors which will be highly digitized or digitalized in the next decade. We have already seen telemedicine, teletransportation, and all this stuff is already going on in West Bengal. I know very well a lot of villages where the healthcare is not adequately available. People are providing healthcare services through telemedicine. I think that the telecalls or something like that. So this is one of the areas where it will be a huge disruption, especially the meters. Now we see oximeter is one of the popular meters during this COVID time. Then your your heartbeats, your pulse, your blood pressure. In future, I believe sensors will also be able to detect your heart and lungs function very well. Already technologies are available, but these will be affordable technologies available, and these will be consumerized. Currently it is slightly industrialized, but these things are also going to be consumerized in a future time. Hospitality is nothing but the hotels and the restaurant chains where we go, is highly automated. Countries like China, United States, Japan, Korea, these countries have already have lot of automation in their in the hotels. And you manage a hotel in India. If you see, a hotel needs average 2000 to 2500 people to manage, because of most of the things are manually managed. Okay, starting from supply chain to to housekeeping to pantry to guest management system and everything. But in future, you will be able to manage your entire hotel by hardly one tenth, 250 people, or maybe much lesser than that. So that is what kind of automation is going to come up, and sensor is going to play a key role in that. Offices, like, I mean, smart television, smart temperature monitoring, lights, CCTVs, air conditioning, everything is sensor controlled and sensor based. And another type of sensor is coming up, which will be part of automobile in future. I mean, since it came up, this slide came up, I just wanted to share that also, which is called sentiment oriented sensor. So that means the sensor will understand your sentiment, and accordingly it will start working. I mean, the start working. So these kind of sensors are going to come up. So office mood, slightly gloomy, you are not good at the day, and you come to the office or come to your college or university in a gloomy situation. The sensor will understand your mood, and accordingly it will change the ambience and the music or something like that. This is future of working. Coming back to sensors in warehouse and manufacturing, which is extremely important. So starting from your warehouse in inventory management, like example, we have the barcodes and this QR. Most of the bins which we use, bins are nothing but the carriers where we carry the auto components. So these are currently having barcodes, but barcodes had a shelf life. They are soon getting damaged, and many times people wear it off. So these smart bins are coming up, which are already available with sensors, and the sensors are there in every side of the bin. And then the bin can go to any location, and automatically the RFID sensor sense that, and it understands where material is getting shifted. Currently what we do is we go to SAP or some other ERP solution, we punch the data there, and then if the data flows into other location, then again another person punches the data. All this will go off. So as the bin moves from one location to another location, it will understand very well where the bin has been kept. Similarly, suppose you have a, I don't know how many people know here, we have a concept in warehouse called high rise and marketplace. High say, see Amazon warehouses, which are huge in nature, which are like, say, for an example, 30, 40 feet long, and they have stacks in between. So they have floors, those locations also, when we keep the smart bin, it will automatically sense that row number 5, so, maybe rack number, and also A, B, C, something like that. You have kept this material of this quantity at this point of time by this person. The entire history will be available in you, and you need not to do any kind of manual punching or mobile application or anything else. Everything will be done automatically, because the person will carry a sensor through RFID. The bin is smart enough, and also the time is anyway captured when the data is captured, so and transferred through Wi-Fi. So I think this is the future, that future technology. Say Wi-Fi, that means actually it is nothing but a IoT technology through which the data will be pushed to the cloud environment. Second thing is visual dashboards. So real-time dashboards. What I am manufacturing right now. Suppose customer wants to know which car is currently manufactured in which plant of yours. So we are running around 69 plants in the country. Many times the Maruti Suzuki or Tata Motors, or the Mahindras or anybody, Toyotas, they want to know whether I'm producing their parts or not, and on time or not. So these smart dashboards will be there. They will capture the information and through sensors, and they will show it in the smart dashboard. It will be displayed on the shop floor also. It will also trigger to the customer that your part or your component is getting produced at, and then a continuous visibility till the the OEM itself. And this is not a dream. This is a reality. We already have these systems in place, and we are actually doing this on a real-time basis. Then these vehicle management area, where we need to understand this telematics technology is there in the country for almost a decade now, almost 10 years. I have seen in my previous organization also, where I used to put telematics in the tractors and the construction equipments. So telematics is another technology which basically produces real-time access to the vehicle, and it also sorry checks the the mm, the vehicle parameters, say for an example, tire pressure, oil availability, or the battery condition, engine condition. All these parameters are captured and sent to cloud so that people can access. So telematics is another solution which is going to be very widely used, and I know many organizations who are currently having complete fleet management through telematics. Telematics is nothing but the sensors which collects data from the engine or the other parts of the car or two wheelers, and send it through cloud to the the customer or the person who is monitoring on a real time basis. This is another use case. Warehouse I already shared with you, and then obviously inventory control, visibility of things. So most importantly, the efficiency is going to visibility of what we do, and also in terms of how the business is the going ahead, and what kind of things we are doing, what we are doing at what point of time. So one concept is there for last 20 years, is called just in time. So this concept is, what is that? I am just in time looking at what you are doing. So it is not just in time for me, it is just in time for my entire ecosystem. Hope I'm audible, Anindodai. Any problem, just let me know.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No problem.
Thank you. Let me move on. Some of the global data points I want to share with you, just for a perspective to give you the scope. Since you all are teaching, I believe you are from different departments, not only physics, if I understand well, Anindoda.
Yes, all mostly electronics communication engineering, also physics and other backgrounds also. It's a mixed background.
Very good. So my suggestion is, whenever you are teaching your students, or you are also looking at data points when you're teaching tech, because you teach technology, you teach behavioral sciences, you teach how to communicate, how to speak, how to write, how to acquire knowledge, and how to finally deliver it on the exam papers. My suggestion is, please also look at the industry progress, how industry is progressing at this point of time. What is the market size? What is the scope for a person? In our Pune factory, I'll come to my company also later on in the slides. In my factory, I think we have so many electronics engineers working. We have large sensor factory. We have also acquired a company from US, and where we are manufacturing sensors on our own, and selling it to the OEMs and also outside. So I mean, a lot of scope and opportunities there in the sensor market. As you know, this from the China, situation currently, which is going on with the government, and this Atmanirbhar Bharat call, which has been taken by the government itself. This sensor potential, sensor, especially I'm talking about sensors right now. The potential of manufacturing sensors and manufacturing and distribution of sensors in India and abroad from India is going to leapfrog like anything. I'd say 5x, 10x jump will happen. So scope is enormous, and enormous opportunities are there, not only for manufacturing, also for R&D, research and development, manufacturing, distribution. And the market is going to increase many folds, because whether you use a refrigerator, whether you use an automobile or an electric or a fan or any of the washing machine, you need sensor everywhere. The market is going to expand. So my suggestion is to all of you, always please look at the global penetration, and I will also come to the Indian slide. So global sensor market is going to reach almost to $300 billion. $300 billion. I don't know how many of you can calculate. $100 billion is around 7 lakh crores. So you just imagine what is the figure going to happen by 2025. This is expected. Pandemic might give a small shot or small disruption in the entire process, but this is going to pick up. The CAGR is compound annual growth rate is around 10%, which is continuing from 2019 till 2025. And look at the penetration. So look at, especially the opportunity markets, or I will not say growth markets, I will say opportunity markets, where actually the opportunity is. These are nothing but, India, China, Russia, entire Southeast Asia, Australia, Africa. The growth is actually happening there. Growth is happening very moderately in the US market and the Northern American market, and pretty low in the South American market due to the absorption going to happen there. Also, Europe is one of the areas which is picking up very, very slowly. And we are going to have, currently we are around having 25 billion devices which are sensor based in the world, and there are various areas. And in future 2025, the figure is going to be 35 billion devices. So manufacturing 35 billion, if we just take a share of business of 10%, or say for an example 20%, and we manufacture in India, make in India, just imagine 35 billion, 10% is around 3.5 billion. So 3.5 billion sensors produced in India. So many job opportunities, so many industrial opportunities, so many market opportunities are going to come up. So this is an important fact we need to understand when we talk to the students, when we talk to our fraternity and stuff like that. And applications, whether it can be enterprise IoT, it can be smart home devices. Let me put the pointer option. I think that will be better. Yeah. Smart home devices, wearables, as you know, these smart watches and something like that, or these glasses which we wear for doing many activities. These are all sensor based. Connected vehicles obviously is a big opportunity. Smart televisions, speakers and screens, and other devices. So the gist is basically 2019. I think the figure is known to you. By 2030, around 58 billion dollars business. Market growth is 7.5%, and APAC is going to be one of the major areas where APAC we fall under, which is Asia Pacific region, which will be one of the major areas for the growth. Now, future of mobility is car talking to a car. Today, what happens is a human talks to a human. I am talking to Anindra. I am talking to around 75, 80 of you who are participating in this faculty development program. But tomorrow, whether we speak or not, the cars are definitely going to speak with each other. And these are going to happen through sensors only. Robots are already talking with each other. We are calling them cobots, communication bots. What are they doing? One robot is talking to another robot. And Facebook shut down one of the important services, AI service, where the robot was actually talking to another robot, and Facebook was not able to decipher what is going on. And that language they were talking, they were not able to decipher. They thought it's going to be disruptive. Let's stop it. They might talk to each other and say, let's shut down Facebook. We don't know. So I think Facebook got really, alert, and they shut down the services immediately. And this is the future. So I'm not talking about the disruptive side, but I'm talking about the constructive side. Look at the situation of the road. When a car is talking to another car, you mean the biggest advantage will be safety. Today you see Kolkata, Mumbai, Delhi. I stay in Delhi, which is one of the most populated cities in the country in terms of car penetration. We run around 90 lakhs car on the road, 9 million cars on the road on a daily basis, just because of pandemic, and most of the IT companies are working from home. To the penetration will be around 4 million or 5 million, but ultimately if when the pandemic is over, it is again going to touch 9 million. 90 lakh vehicles flying in the Delhi roads, which is almost equal to the number of vehicles flying in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, Kolkata and Hyderabad and Chennai. So Delhi itself is having such a big number of vehicles, and daily there are n number of accidents happening on the road. This system is going to actually avert the accidents. For safety, how? First of all, this sensor is not going to only detect the collision, it will also avoid and put a hard brake to your vehicle to avoid the collision. So these are the advantages we are going to get in future. And not only that, you see the vehicles going in this road may be talking to each other. The vehicles are talking to each other that I am carrying pizza. Do you want to get it delivered to your vehicle? I am carrying a banking system right now or a ATM. Do you want to withdraw cash from this vehicle? These are the disruptions going to happen. So look at the power of sensor, a small sensor which can do a tremendous amount of disruption in the entire spectrum. Autonomous car, I believe all of you know, and there's a disruption going on. We call it ACEs. What is ACEs? Autonomous, connected, electric, and shared. So we already know what is shared mobility in India. Uber and Ola has already disrupted the entire market through most of the taxi services are not required today. People are so happy and so they're so good in traveling, and it's so convenient traveling in Olas and Ubers. So shared mobility we have already seen. Electric mobility is slowly coming up, and because of the environmental pressure and the G20 or G8 pressure on India, definitely India has to adopt electric mobility by 2030, and the expectation is by 2030 we'll be at least having I will say 40% or 50% cars with electric capability in the road. The infrastructure is slowly growing up, and soon you will see a lot of green tags. All electric vehicles have green tags on the back, unlike the personal cars or the taxis which have yellow and black or white. The green tags you will see in the roads. I mean, in Delhi we see regularly many vehicles are coming up now. So this is the future. So in connected cars, it's nothing but, or an autonomous car, it is driverless, so it does not need any driver. So what are the sensors going to be used? Ultrasonic sensors, imaging sensors which will have night vision camera, visible cameras, 3D cameras. In fact, in one of our units we also produce reverse parking sensor. So what it does is, and also reverse parking automated system, RPAS, it is called RPAS. The regulation is going to come up as auto industry standard by the governing authorities very soon. This sensor is basically helps you park your car automatically. You need not to do your steering control and look at the back and side and all this forth. The car will automatically sense everything, and it will go and park as it is where the parking space is available. This is the power of this, the RPAS, and we are also producing that. I will come back later on. Light detection and ranging sensor, which is called LIDAR, which is basically talking about the 3D mapping and surroundings, like I was showing in the previous slide. So it is doing the same thing here, and this is one of the major disruptions which are currently going on in the market. Apart from that, we have short range, mid range, and long range sensors, which are basically talking with the long range cars. Say for an example, your wife is stuck up or your husband is stuck up in 10 kilometers from your place. Suppose you're in Bardhaman city, they are in Guskora or some other place. I don't remember the places because I'm out of Bengal for almost 20 years now. So Guskora may be another location I just remembered immediately. So maybe your wife is in Guskora and you are in Bardhaman, say for an example, or Memari. Okay, Memari is a prominent location. So you can sense that car, from the long range sensor through internet, and you will communicate with each other when you will reach to such a certain location for shopping or doing some other activities, going to your child's school or something like that. You need not to what we do today. Where are you? In Bangla we say kothay acho. I am there somewhere. Okay, let's catch up and then let's move to that location. And then we say, kya ho gaya? Why you're not visible? No, I am stuck up in traffic, or you're eating ice cream or something. Your wife doesn't know. In that scenario, your wife will be able to know you are actually eating ice cream or not, because everywhere there is a sensor. Your body might have a sensor which will communicate to your wife, okay, this guy is now eating ice cream and wasting time and not coming to the place. So I think these are the situations going to come up. Sensor is one side, it is really constructive, another side it is also disruptive for the society. Please understand that part as well. Then another interesting thing which are going to come up is artificial intelligence use cases in automotive. See, please understand one thing. One is the sensors applicability and use case for the owners or the users who are using the vehicles. Another use case is for the society or for the ecosystem. How the ecosystem will get benefited. The design ecosystem, people who are doing design R&D job, they will get the information automatically that how car is behaving, what kind of changes required in the car. Passenger experiences I have already shared with you, the user experience part. Driver experience, say one thing, in United States there is a a regulation already passed in one of the states, California I believe, which is talking about when the driver is sleeping in the car, or maybe he's driving like this and suddenly he's having some kind of naps or something like that, and then he's again waking up and trying. Those cars, the insurance premiums are actually higher than the normal cars. Why? Because the sensor is able to detect that this guy is sleeping and not driving properly, or maybe he's an erratic driver, he's doing lot of steering adjustments and turning left and right and all these things. Those drivers, the cars, the insurance premiums are higher than the normal cars, and which is not done by human beings, which are done by sensors. They detect your motions, they detect your motion sensors, and then they communicate to the insurance companies that this guy is not driving well, please increase the premium for this car. You suddenly see an inflated premium, you are surprised, but actually you have to pay that because that is how the car has detected. It's to artificial intelligence. This is very important subject. I covered the insurance part. Car dealership experience. So the car dealership understands this car is running on the road, and after 200 kilometers of run, this car will be car will require some kind of a service, or the warranty is going to get dropped. Please sell the extended warranty to the the owner, or the AMC is due now. Let's approach the customer to the dealer. So these are all done by sensors, and especially I was in the auto, the tractor manufacturing organization in my previous assignment, where what we used to do is the tractors, the telematics devices used to tell us this tractor after 500 hours of run, because in tractors we don't see kilometers, we see hours. So after 500 hours of run, this tractor is going to go down, it will not work because the engine is not behaving properly. So we immediately used to call the customer, user, and tell him, boss, please bring your tractor to the dealership, or I will send my mechanic and he will fix the problem. So this intelligent information system is actually possible because of the sensors built in the telematics device, and it throws away information on a real-time basis. Quality control, you understand, and supply chain. So supply chain is nothing but, which we're talking about, the industrial supply chain. So I'll give an example. We have Kanban system implemented. We call it e-Kanban, electronic Kanban. What is that? I don't know how many of you have aware of this Kanban system. It is basically a supply chain model used in started by Japan. So this Kanban is nothing but when I finish the components on my assembly line, it will automatically send a trigger to my supply chain supplier that please send me 100 beans again because I am short of these beans, and these beans will be required in next 2 hours. This complete information is sent automatically, which is called e-Kanban. Earlier, we used to have Kanban cards. We used to fill up the cards and then communicate to the supplier over phone. Boss, these are the components I need, and please ship it to me by next 2 hours or 3 hours or something like that. Now everything is done automatically. So this e-Kanban is one of the disruptions which are, which has completely disrupted the entire supply chain. Car assembly manufacturing, I mean, assembly lines, obviously we have sensors like these sensors are actually helping us to detect the actual, the flow of the material, and also we have IoT implemented in 4 or 5 of our factories now. Two in Pune, one in Chennai, and one in Gujarat, and one in Haryana. So these sensors, these factories, where we do not have any man to capture the production, everything is automatic. The conveyor is going, and after the conveyor is over, I mean the data is captured and it's sent back to the ERP system automatically that these many parts have been produced, and these many parts have fault, an OK and NG. So these many parts are OK, these many parts are NG, these many parts have been produced, and these many parts have been produced for this customer. This customer delivery will happen in next 2 days, and this material, please keep it in that location. Entire information is captured automatically without any manual intervention. That is how the disruptions are happening. So that's why I wanted to share this slide with you. Then obviously, uh, before 2007, especially the luxury cars or the SUVs were only having the sensors penetration. Now, from 2015, mid-segment cars, also the sedans and the other, the smaller cars, started having sensor. And now, beyond 2020, each and every car is having sensors, whether you name it, you're the smallest car of Maruti Suzuki to the largest car of Volkswagen or Mercedes, every car is going to have sensor. So sensor is coming as a regulation now by government of India, and very soon you will see every car will be having sensors. Just to give an example, a car was launched by Tata Motors, last year, 2018, in Europe. I still remember I think it was in Germany, Munich auto show, and that car was having 2500 sensors. Why I know this information? Because the person who is the head of R&D, he's a good friend of mine. I was also in Tata for some time, around 2005. So he told me personally that this car is having 2500 sensors, and they have a huge IT platform to manage the information coming from the sensors, because 2500 sensors means the sensors actually have to work properly and coordinate information between each other. So that is the kind of, you know uh, power a car is having. 2500 sensors means it's actually not a car, it's basically an IT platform, or it's a desktop or a mobile phone or a laptop. I think I will not say it's a car. It's a, or maybe you can say wheels on, computer on a wheel. And that is another terminology we use, that a computer is running on a wheel. So I think something like that. So look at the kinds of, sensors which are, coming up. Like example, video cameras, microphones, radar sensors, infrared sensors, pressure sensor, nothing but tire pressure sensor. Uh, I'll give an example of one of the companies, rather two of the companies. I think all the companies nowadays are doing that, but initially started by Apollo Tires and then by JK Tires. What they're doing is they are doing tire as a service. What is this model? We know car as a service, food as a service, insurance as a service, bank as a service, but this is called tire as a service. So they give you a tire, they don't sell you the tire. You pay a monthly EMI or a kind of something like that, a very small amount on the tire. The tire is fitted with an IoT device, with a sensor and an IoT device, and it sends information over the cloud. After maybe 50,000 cycles or something like that, 50,000 kilometers, they come to they understand the tire is actually worn out. They come and replace the tire automatically. If the tire is worn out within 25,000 kilometers, they will give you an alert. They will come and replace the tire. So this is a disruption which is actually happening in this market. So why, I mean, I was talking about this tire specifically because in future, most of the things you see, like car as rental as a service, food now is Zomato and Swiggy's and other things have come. So everything is coming up as a service model from a buying model. People are not actually willing to buy things. Houses, if you see in Delhi and NCR, if you come, and maybe I don't know about Kolkata much, but in Delhi NCR, if you come and see, 50% of the flats are unoccupied. Why? Because so much of inventory is available and there is no buyer. So most of the people are preferring to stay on rent. So that rental model is nothing but a service model. So each and everything is going to come as a service model, except in relationship. Don't expect that husband and wife as a service is possible. That is not the right thing to do. That you have to anyway have the right marriage system. But other than husband, wife, and family, everything is going to be as a service. So this is the future. Similarly, for two-wheeler, we have the engine control unit, which is extremely important, which controls the entire engine, through sensor management system, instrument panels, the automatic braking system, then the front wheel braking system, the ignitions, the throttle actuators, injection, ABS sensor, rear wheel sensor box, ABS modulation. All these things are now controlled by a two-wheeler also. Earlier, the two-wheelers were having zero sensors, but I'm seeing the last 2 3 years, the two-wheeler manufacturers have come out with a lot of sensors, and they are also coming up with collision detection system, and very soon you will see that, and the regulation is coming up by auto industry standard. Then coming to smart factory, as you know, smart factories have the production management system, the IoT controller system, and the headquarters all are connected by uh, sensors. And this is a better visibility to explain you. So this is like the material drop area where the material is getting dropped by the supplier, then they picked by the forklift and kept in the right location. Then you have the assembly lines where the OKNG is happening, whether I am producing OK part or not. So look at this complete inbound supply chain or inbound logistics is completely controlled by sensors. Then the manufacturing line, then comes to the the assembly line where I have a conveyor, and every station has a sensor to manage and monitor what is going to happen and what is going on at this point of time on a real time basis. I can look at everything on the mobile phone today. And then the logistics and the warehousing, these two are also, I told you, logistics already, we have telematics and other things which are going to come up very fast. And for the warehousing also, I already shared the use cases earlier. Another interesting part I forgot to mention in the beginning is called energy management system. Now the energy management is also happening through completely sensor based system. We have two factories where we have implemented these sensors, where the sensors are actually detecting when I have idle time on the machines, when the machine is fetching lot of power, which can be sorry, which should be customized or which should be controlled. When I am losing power, where is the leakage happening inside the entire power distribution. All these things are managed today by sensors. And by the way, in one factory only, I have saved around 25 lakh rupees 1 year, just to just ensuring that the sensors are placed at the right time, right point, and we actually able to monitor what is happening, and we were able to control that. Just in one factory, we saved 25 lakhs. Now, if I deploy it in all the factories, the savings will be in crores. Last segment is what our company, the company I represent, Uno Minda, is around 7,000 crore company. The market cap is around 8,000 crore. Our company has around 260 plus patents, which are already filed and acquired. We have around 10 joint ventures and 22,000 employees. This is the statistics I just wanted to share with you, just to understand what kind of size and company we have. We have around 10 locations which are doing R&D, and we have an advanced R&D location in Pune, which is called CREATE, Center for Research and Engineering for Advanced Technologies. Now I will focus what kind of sensors we are producing, so that you have a complete understanding of the organization where I work for. So we have, for powertrain sensors, we have transmission speed sensor, AMT sensor, which is auto manual transmission, then cam sensor, cam is part of the engine, and the sensor. Then we have this is camshaft and crankshaft, where the sensors are used to understand the engine engine functionality and other things. And then TMAP sensor is there. Then for safety vehicles control sensors, we have CNG sensor, chassis level sensor, ABS sensors, and tire pressure sensors. Uh, then for hybrid and electric vehicles, which is the upcoming disruption happening in the auto industry, we are having neutral position sensor. And just to make you clear another thing, in a normal car, we use around 4,000 to 5,000 parts, spare parts or parts to assemble the car. In an electric car, we just need 40 to 50 parts. So the number of parts are going to come down from 4,000 to 5,000 to 40 to 50. So it's almost 100 times reduction in terms of the compression, or I will say the requirement, because the electric and hybrid car is nothing but a complete computer on wheel. So you don't need so many parts, especially engine is going to go off. So that's why you will see these kind of sensors are part of the electric cars. Neutral position sensor generation 2. So these are actually the modifications. Then clutch position sensor, brake pedal, and vacuum sensors. So these are the sensors required for electric vehicle, which we produce. For powertrain, again, I think we have some more sensors for two-wheelers, which are coolant, engine oil temperature sensor, intake air, and many other things. I'm not reading everything, just to make sure that you understand what we also manufacture. And for safety and control, which is extremely important, we use lean and angle sensor, we use SCB sensor, ABS sensor, which is for the braking and other things. We use the tire pressure sensor and the skid stand sensor. Skidding is a very common phenomenon when the vehicle is on the road, and especially in the monsoon season. It will also avoid skidding because it will help you to balance the vehicle in a better way. And there are some more sensors which are related with hybrid and and electric vehicles for two-wheelers. So two-wheelers are also coming very fast with the electric vehicles. So there also we have acceleration position sensor and battery temperature sensors and so on. So I think this is the end of my presentation, and I don't know whether I have done the right justice or not for the audience here. I have tried my level best, but maybe some things still maybe missed out in my presentation. So I covered the evolution of sensors. I covered industry 4.0 to society 5.0. I covered the market, how it is penetrating and expanding in the complete geography. Then I covered the types of sensors used in various applications. Again, coming back to the automotive sensors, and then finally my company's perspective. I think over to Anindya to look at the question and answers if you have something. I have
Okay,
taken 45 minutes exactly.
okay, thank you very much. Exactly 45 minutes. Okay. Because we started at 12:17.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much, first of all, Parno, for your nice presentation. Already a few questions and comments has poured in. I will first read one, and then I will first of all, I want to discuss use cases from my side, share my comments, and then I will come back to questions. Okay.
sure.
One of the comments is so you can very well understand what the participants are thinking. This FDP combines a perfect blend of academicians and industry experts. So I think that is all it tells about you, what the question or the issue you raised, that how much you have did justice. So you are a very good judge, I must say. Okay. Because I work with obviously position sensor, so from my point of view, I just want to discuss two use cases. So at the beginning, Mr. Ghosh has raised one very important issue, that we need sensors in academic environments also. I see it in a different way. Okay, what will come, that will come, and with time everything will change. But what happened, for universities or institutions like us, we gather resources, I mean, hardware resources over a long period of time, one after another, and we have to work very hard, and we take a long time to assemble all of those. Okay, so after that, it happened in our university also, and I think many of my colleagues here, they will agree with me. Sometimes something happens. Something happens means mainly electrical fire, and within a night or within hours, our years of effort, which we put together, ourselves and our students and the authority we put together, that is lost. not only point of view of the hardware resource itself, but also point of the data. So now there are scopes, but still we live behind what we should do. So okay, I will take backup tomorrow, and that unfortunate night came in between today and tomorrow. So our whole effort is lost. So we need. I think in our university also we are in our department we are thinking and we have started discussing. Can we, because so many people are here, can we not develop can we not develop a very low cost sensor network that will simply keep on checking the temperature of the or the smoke and alert us, because many of us live very very near, some 5 minutes away in the campus itself. So if we can generate an alarm in such type of thing or to the security people, so it can be this can be avoided. So that is very simple but
I'll
very.
give a suggestion. I'll give a suggestion to this. I think I understood your point very well.
Mhm.
So one suggestion I'll provide you is from IT angle, obviously, not from a industry angle, because you know better than me about your research. But say for an example, when you're doing your research on a continuous basis, maybe for months after months, and then you come up to the conclusion that this is the final conclusion. Why don't you share, do a video recording of the entire thing and keep that video recording on the cloud? A cloud means always not maybe a Google cloud or something else. It can be cloud in your own setup. It can be your own data center, your own Bardon University's data center, or some data centers which are provided by Government of India, because now government is also going for large data center building in the entire country. So this is one way of looking at it. Second way of looking at it is taking the complete backup of the documentation and the data also on the cloud. I mean, these nowadays there are technologies. I don't want to mention the OEMs right now because that's not the right. This is not the right forum for that. But there are OEMs who are doing video analytics and also data synchronization on a real-time basis. You need not to do any backup separately. You have to click somewhere and then click somewhere and then say the backup is done. These backups will happen automatically at the back end. You will never know when the backup has happened. And one more interesting thing is, and the most important thing is, they have deduplication process. I believe you may know what is deduplication, which is nothing but if you have research for 6 months and the backup system is so intelligent, we call it smart backup system. It understands 50% of the data is redundant in nature. What it will do is it will do a deduplication and remove the duplicated areas from that video backup itself. So you will have the right contextual data at that point of time, and your retrieval system from that backup system will be very fast. Nowadays we retrieve in just few hours. It doesn't take days or months. So I think that my suggestion will be, one is the video recording. When you do that, and that video recording can also be deduplicated, similarly the data can also be deduplicated, and you can have a very smart working in terms of backup. Because I believe so many man hours loss is a huge loss for not only your university, it's also for the country and the GDP. So it's always good to have this kind of intelligence system. Yes, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the discussion and the suggestion from Mr. Ghosh would benefit all the people present here, because we nearly work in the very similar environment. And obviously, uh, the scenario is changing. What we were there, but it's very slow in comparison to industry. You can very well understand. We have
Right.
our own inertia. Okay,
Constraints,
I
yeah.
know, not constraint or inertia. I will not always say constraints. Our own inertia, not constraints
Okay.
always. Okay. So second thing is what I want to bring up. It's for you and also for all the participants to understand how the scenario. What are the challenges are? As I told, I work closely with some of the industries. So one of the industry that is who prepares tomato ketchups, food industry. Okay. So their model is they have their own supply chain. They have their own supply chain, and they want to harvest tomatoes exactly in a particular time within a very narrow period window of time, so that they're in the best condition, so their product becomes the best quality. If it is not that ripe, the quality would be bad. If it is over the desired value, it is once again the quality would be bad. So they want that it should be very, very within that very short period of window of maybe 4 to 5 days. So now the us, because this is another very important aspects of from Indian point of view. Because of agriculture, we work on how to use sensors for agriculture. Our laboratory works on that one. So this problem came to us. So now, if they cannot collect enough, so in their inventory there is not enough amount of tomatoes, the supply line, I mean the production line will hamper. If there is extra, once again, some of the tomatoes will be simply wasted. So it's a very serious challenge. Yeah, I just want
I
to give the
can
flavor.
share. Yeah, if you want, I can share my perspective. In my previous organization, CNH Industrial, I visited United States of America, and I have seen very nice systems which they have built over a period of time. So there are drones available, with the farmers and the farmlands. And the US farmlands are at least 6 to 10 times bigger than what Indian farmlands are. Huge farmlands, and they have drones which actually do visual analytics on the entire farm, and they detect that which location the because I have seen that field is basically for the the wheat. So wheat fields, which wheat is actually ready to be harvested, and they take the visual analytics, they take the photographs, they send it to the cloud. It comes back to the farmer on some smartphone, and he can see this location of your fields need immediate harvesting, otherwise the crops are may get damaged or something, or maybe it's already getting damaged or something like that. So visual analytics again through drones are possible. I mean, that is also, sensors which you pick the data and send it to the cloud for doing analytics, and then finally comes out down to the mobile phone on an app. So I think this kind of technologies are possible, and it's already available. In fact, in CNH, we have a device which is flying, sowing device. So we generally make the harvesting devices, but this flying device, what it does is, when the field is there and it's a large farmland, it basically sprays the seeds and the water both from the drones. And the drones are not small drones, these are very big drones, like almost like, I can tell you, by 4 feet by 4 feet drone. So that kind of huge drone with carrying lot of seeds and water, it goes and sprays that. Technology are available. The only challenge in India would be affordability. And affordability, when I say, it means affordability by the farmers, maybe smaller farmers, not possible. So I think that is another concept coming up in I will you know that very well. In Bardwan also it will be there. It's called custom hiring centers. So CHC is basically nothing but they are government sponsored locations where you can take those devices on rent. And I told you in the beginning, as a service, this is also a service model. So you can take this on a rent, do your activities. You don't need any manual labor and something like that. It will detect your farmland. You can do the geo tagging of your boundaries. This much only do Anindra Bose's farmland and do that. It should do it only for Parna Ghosh. So you go there, you do your seed, distribution and water distribution, and come back. And they charge on hourly basis. This model is working, just for your information. This model is already working in very strongly in Punjab, Haryana, Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh, they make a lot of apples in the apple orchards. They are doing something like this. Some experiments are going on. Just a perspective I wanted to share. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have seen that because I also attend many industry sessions for my research, that we need much more. So as Mr. Ghosh has shared, Industry 4.0, we are in Agriculture 4.0 at the same time. So
Okay.
Agriculture 4.0, the bottom line, the tagline is smart farming. So once again, another side would be like that. So let us go back to the questions and answer. I don't want to take only the privilege because you cannot talk. So let us take a few questions. I have one question in mind that I will ask if time permits. Okay.
I hope the questions are all easy to understand, explain.
Uh,
Otherwise, I'll have difficult
okay.
time.
So, there is a question from, not question, just a comment from Mr. Jeet Banerjee of Adams University. He has requested, can you kindly share the email ID of the honorable speaker? I will talk to you, and if you permit, I will share it.
Please,
Next,
please do that. Share my Gmail ID. I'll share in. I don't know if there is a chat session or not. I can share right now. But Anindoda is anyway having that.
yes,
He
yes,
will share with you. No
okay,
problems
okay.
at all.
Okay, I will share you. So there is another interesting question, Mr. K. Ravichandra. Uh, the question it is that which sensor can be preferred to identify a person who is cutting trees, sandalwood trees, for example, of late in a secured region of Rajendranagar, Haryana, Hyderabad. Nearly good grown sandalwood trees were cut by thieves. Any solution can you suggest to them that a sensor would be fixed in and it will give alarm mechanism, etc. In two parts, he has asked the question. Okay, Porno, if you want to comment.
Yeah. So, a very good question, and I think thanks, Mr. Rajendran, or I don't know, Professor Rajendran, for asking this question. This is going to save our environment very seriously. Government has some plans for agriculture, as Anindoda was sharing. Also for this kind of mm, the dacoits, or I will say the people mafias rather, we who are actually doing this kind of trading of sandalwood and something like that. The only challenge here is the kind of sensors required, because these sensors really need lot of environmental protection. Say for an example, rain, then heavy temperature, high temperature, or dust, or it can be anything. So, I mean, when we talk about this, basically, there are sensors available which are having two types of sensors are required. One is the proximity sensor, which can sense any kind of, proximity between a range of 7 feet to minimum 20 feet range. The sensors are available. Especially these sensors are currently procured from Taiwan and Japan, but I think these sensors are going to be produced in India as well. I think these sensors will be, we will be able to utilize there. And also another type of sensor is required, which is called the heat sensors. So heat sensors will also protect that any kind of temperature which is increasing beyond this limit will immediately send a trigger. The only problem, is the mass deployment, because those lands will be in acres and acres, and I don't know how many hectares. Actually, it will be in thousands of kilometers, something like that. So deployment, uh, everything. Please understand one thing: you are all from academia. I know something about finance. Let me also share with you. Anindra will know better than me. See, every deployment need to have a business case. If the business case is not proven, suppose example, in a year 1 crore rupees of sandalwood is getting stolen. I'm just giving a blank example, but the technology deployment needs 50 lakhs per annum investment. Does it really make sense? If it really makes sense, government will definitely deploy that, or maybe the individuals will do that. If it does not make sense, sometimes technology investments are higher than your returns, then it is not suggested to invest for technology. It is better to put some security guards there. That will be more practical in terms of putting a technology will only help you when the outcome, or the returns will be some x, like 2x, 3x, 5x. Then I think it makes sense to invest. That I think I tried to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, just in a lighter moment, always whenever I present this type of thing or I discuss, always in my back of the mind it rings one TV commercial, which gives a very good idea, I think, for all of us who work like this in technology from field to the land. It's from one of the probably one of the car manufacturers. So the TV commercial goes like that: a few persons are visiting a NASA floor, a ready to launch vehicle. So the guide with a huge enthusiasm of telling the whole group that, sir, this will do this is this. So one very simple looking person, he was visibly a bit confused. So the guide asks him, sir, do you want to tell something? And the person tells, kitna deti hai? So that is the important thing for the Indian mindset. What's the mileage?
Absolutely. And not only Indian mindset. Look at the situation. You do. I'll give an example. Okay, you are doing a lot of investments in R&D for the universities, inside your labs, and I think spending, I don't know, at least people who are having research scholars in their, in their, as a student, they will be investing 80% of their time. Others will at least invest 40 to 60% of their time in the labs or doing research and something like that. If those research work is not having any market value for the society, or any outcome for the society, or like you were talking, you were trying to do something for the farmers, if there is no utilization for the society, I think those research never yields good results. That's why I'll give a small example. I worked very closely with IIT Delhi for IoT development. We have a society which is working on the IoT development for the entire country. I am asking them for last 3 years, boss, please give me low cost IoT products which I can deploy very fast, because I can still afford as a 7,000 crore, 8,000 crore company. But companies which are 100 crore, 50 crore, 25 crore turnover, they can't spend lakhs and lakhs of rupees for investment for on IoT. Please give me low cost sensors, low cost IoT devices which can be deployed fast and we can roll out fast. And they are still not able to do that. I mean, this is what is the problem. Just a perspective I wanted to share. Thank you.
Okay. So the next, it's a comment from Mugdha Dambare. Very informative session, sir. Thank you. So next question is from Kaushik Mathur. Kaushik Mathur asks that I have made a battery car myself as a whole, and afterwards his question is, it is in 80,000, and he has invested from his own salary. So his question is, how now I need some financial help and license, and how can I get help from you, sir? This is from Mr. Kaushik Mathur, Dr. Kaushik Mathur.
Okay. So I think first of all, let me applaud you. We have done a great job, and India needs inventors or innovators like you. So thank you very much for sharing this. Please share your details over mail. I think Dr. Bose will share you the my credentials later on. There are two ways of looking at this. Rather, three ways of looking at this venture. One is you are a startup. You should actually have to float a startup where you will be needing you will be needing venture capitalists or equity funding for taking this forward for investments point of view. Second option is you can contact TIE Calcutta. I don't know how many people know about TIE. TIE. TIE is basically for young entrepreneurs and for industrial entrepreneurs who are basically trying to do some kind of innovation and some kind of automation or some kind of investments in startups or something ecosystem. So TIE has chapter in every city. So Kolkata also is also having a TIE chapter. You can contact them and you can seek their help for funding, and because you first of all will need seed funding and forwarded followed by other fundings. Although I know a lot of venture capitalists, I will forward your use case to them. And the third thing what you can do is you can also approach government of India, industrial, it's Department of Industries and heavy engineering. There is a department under Ministry of Heavy Engineering. I think Mr. Babul Supriyo was there earlier as a minister there. I don't know who is the current minister, but you can check that in the website. You can also approach them because they also do lot of funding in case of Startup India. There is an initiative by government of India called Startup India, like Digital India. There is a initiative called Startup India. From Startup India also you can get support. I can assure you, you will get support from all these three. TIE, you can contact Kolkata chapter. You can send me mail. I can contact some startups who can contact you separately. And third, you can contact the government of India ministry. I think Ministry of Heavy Engineering. I think that is a right engineering right department. You should contact them. They will also help you to get funding from Startup India ecosystem. Thank you.
Okay. So next question is from Mr. Somnath Jalal. Thanks for the nice informative talk. One question, can you comment on the fact that depending more on machine and sensors and automation and smart cities, etc., will it not kill the job prospects of the skilled manpower in India where population is very large? It's a question from Somnath Jalal.
A very good question, a very pertinent question at this point of time. So, Dr. Jalan, Professor Jalan, I don't know whether you are a PhD holder or not. So sorry, maybe definitely yes. So, Dr. Jalan, uh, your question is related with the job prospect. Look at India in 1991. when the first time computerization started happening under leadership of Rajiv Gandhi and this gentleman called Sam Pitroda, who did a huge revolution in the telecom industry. We talked the same thing in West Bengal, that a lot of jobs will get lost, and uh, people will lose job, and we are such a big country with so many people having no jobs, and we will be in a much bigger trouble. What is the situation today? We have actually created more jobs in information technology. We are world's backbone for the service industry. We are actually one of the largest BPO running from our country. We are having the largest IT companies running from our country. This is the actual situation. So my suggestion to you is, don't get perplexed or get confused or get nervous into this system. These new disruptions or the new technologies, whether it is artificial intelligence or blockchain or IoT or sensor based technologies, robotics process automation, or robotics at large, will actually bring up new job advantages, new job scope. Especially these areas will need lot of new skill development. So my suggestion is, in your scope of work, you should look at, okay, there are three concepts which are currently going on in the market. I'll just share each one of them. One is called de-skilling. De-skilling means I know certain skills and I have some competencies. I need to de-skill myself to look at the new skill development. Second thing is called reskilling. Reskilling means I, after de-skilling, okay, now say for an example, I am 51 years of old. Now I have done general management, IT, and blah blah blah. But now these things are not very relevant in the market and industry. I need to reskill myself into blockchain, or maybe into artificial intelligence or analytics or something, or big data. Third thing is upskilling. Upskilling means I have some skills which are also relevant in the market, but I need to add on some of the skills. So de-skilling is what you have to do yourself. Reskilling has to be also done by yourself. Upskilling can be done by the organization, the academia, the industries, or the government, or whatever. So this upskilling is extremely important in taking your country leaping forward to the next competitive age. And I am telling you, I can assure you, job creation will have a dent, but actually new jobs will be created. But the only challenge is whether we are ready to take up those new jobs or not. For that, reskilling and upskilling will be required. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pardo. The next question is from Mr. Arjun Das or Dr. Arjun Das. What extra information does distance sensor provide with respect to Google location service?
Okay, so distance sensor is basically, not only provides the Google location, it is also providing you the actual, how to say, the I mean, okay. So don't look at distance sensor only isolated way as a distance sensor. Sorry. So distance. Now I don't know whether you are aware or not. Maybe in automobile this concept is going on, a platform approach. So a platform is consisting of multiple sensors. So when or rather we also make controllers. So controllers are actually controlling multiple sensors to provide information to the cloud. So when we talk about distance center, it is actually talking about it is also combined with thermal sensor, combined with your temperature sensor, and also combined with your other road condition sensors, which combined information goes to the cloud, and it gives you not only the distance available between two cars or something like that. It also gives you what temperature. You suppose you're running at a very high speed and your tire may get burst, so it will also look at your tire pressure, and tire sensors are going to work on that. So as a platform, this is coming up. It is not nowadays individual sensors which works. It is all as a platform, and controllers are there which combines all the information and then sends it to the cloud. So you get an information which is much richer in nature, and which gives you much more advantage in taking better decisions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So my point is, don't look at into isolated way of just one sensor. It's a bunch of sensors which work together actually. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the first a comment and then the question from Dr. Rakhi Pal. Thank you very much for the very informative session. Then her question is it possible to use sensors for water tap monitoring or stopping to avoid water wastage? In Kolkata Corporation, huge amount of water is wasted from deficit of maintenance. mostly from the roadside taps. Dr. Raki has supplemented.
Okay. So, Dr. Pal, thank you for this question. In my office itself, I have sensors in the washroom which controls, water in a very regimented manner, and or rather a regulated manner. So, you will only get a glass of water for your hand wash, and automatically the tap will stop. And then again, you have to put your hand in front of sensor, which are available in most of the malls. Now, coming back to your question, which are more, related with the roadside taps. Definitely, sensors can be put there, and it can regulate the water consumption or the water wastage. Tell me one thing: is government really interested to do that? If they are interested to do that, they are willing to invest some money on that. It is possible. I mean, there are industrial sensors available. I'll give you an example. We have sensors which are monitoring boilers, which are monitoring the melting stations, where we have a factory where we melt aluminum, which is a huge furnace, where we actually have sensors to monitor the temperature, monitor the wastage of aluminum ingots, and also look at the energy. So if that can be managed and monitored, why not a small tap, a roadside tap? The only thing is, government may not be willing to give you or they're not serious enough to do that. If they're serious enough, there are startups available in India itself who can do this activity.
Okay, thank you. There's a comment from Dr. Rakesh Kumar Jain. Thank you, sir, for giving informative lecture. And I'll wrap up. There is a comment from Kaushik Mathur also. Okay, Somanath Jalal, he has a quick question to both of you, to me and to you, Porno. Can our BSc Physics students will get opportunities to do some internship program or hands-on experience in some organization institutes you are aware of? Raki has conveyed her thanks. It's from Somanath Jalal. I can, from that part, I can say yes. Many of the laboratories, but in our ecosystem, it's a problem that sometimes you do not have enough fund. But from my point of view, I always see in a different way that I have got free manpower. I may sound a bit selfish, but whenever I will get a few manpower, I put them and push them very hard, so that something comes out. But it depends upon fund availability. That is from my side. If Porno can tell that BSc Physics students, basic electronics course they have completed, will they get opportunities to do some internship?
Yeah, unfortunately, question is from, what is the name of the participant?
Mr. Somanath Jalal.
Okay, so Dr. Jalal or Jalan?
Jalal.
Jalal. Okay, Dr. Jalal, the point is, yes, it is possible. In fact, let me tell you, in my department in IT, in this group, I have around 15 to 20 interns. Although we don't pay them any money, but we give them a certificate and a 6 months of training, and which they learn a lot. Many people have joined large organizations after passing out from here, and few of the locations we also pay them some stipend. The only challenge is a person, if he's studying in Bardwan University, how he can come to Delhi or Pune or Chennai. I mean, this can be a challenge. If they are associated nearby to our factory, I mean, I can assure you, we can give them some intern opportunities. I can talk to the plant heads or maybe the business heads. They can ensure that some people get real training on ground on the actual industrial scenarios or the industrial processes. They will be able to get some exposure, but the only challenge here is the distance and the location they have to spend for their staying. And unfortunately, in West Bengal, I don't know how many such organizations are there who can give you exposure in terms of industrial exposure. But in north, west and south, we have many opportunities. If anybody is staying in this side, please let me know. I'll try to help them.
Okay, yes, it's a real problem because our MTech graduates, we send them for 1 year project. But the challenge they faces in most of the cases is arranging their, even if they were ready to pay money, but for a very short period of time, maybe 1 year, getting a partner, it's a problem. But still, Mr. Jalal Somnath, you can discuss this. And also in our university, we accommodate students. First of all, we
Okay.
talk to them and what we do, and if they agree that okay, they are really interested, then we take them. here it is no problem. They can come and go back, but only thing is they have to work hard from 10 in the morning to 10 in the night. So it's a 12-hour shift. Okay, that's the only thing we press very hard. Okay, the last question I would take. Koshika, Koshika, I will just share it. Just let me finish, and I will share in the chat box for everybody of Mr. Parna Ghosh email ID. So you can have it and you can contact him. Okay, so there is no more question. And once again, from my behalf as organizer, and also on behalf of, I have a question that I would, but time is running out. I've got 3-4 minutes. Okay, so my question is, Parno, from your industry point of view, how do you see that from the navigation sensors, that means using our own technology, Navic, forget about what are the regulations. I'm just putting them apart. How do you see what is as the future for a navigation sensor in the auto industry in India?
As far as the navigation sensor is concerned, as you know, I told you in the beginning that there is a government regulation going to come up. It is pending because of the pandemic and other things. Government has, now not pushing it very hard. But as soon as the pandemic is slightly over, this regulation is going to come up, and the utilization and the usage and the penetration will immediately increase after the regulation is coming up. And all the auto manufacturers, I can tell you one thing, which is slightly, not a public news, but all the auto manufacturers are very fast working on these kind of sensors with us and also other competitions who are our competition, so that the proper navigation system. Right now we use what, I mean, for general navigation we use Google or something like that, or Google Maps or Map My India or something like that. But actually inside the car you will be having the navigation system which will actually guide you, this road is congested or this road don't go and this is right route and something like that. This subject is going to be a very, very interesting subject in next few years. I think the market is going to open up very fast. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So, on behalf of all of us, we convey our sincere thanks, gratitude to Mr. Ghosh for his excellent presentation, and from the comments of the participants, it's clear how they have enjoyed it, and it will be very useful for many of us, I believe. So, thank you once again for all of us, and let's move for lunch. I think once again in future, Parno, we will have your support in this kind of platforms, and also in our research, because some of our students work in the field of sensors and integration.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what kind of work they're doing, and maybe I'll connect with my engineering team also, who can help you in doing the right perspective job. I think the most important is utilization and usage. I mean, if that is clear, I think the academics can do very good job in terms of industrial support.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. So